Hello and welcome to Guelph GradCast, the only podcast dedicated to bringing you real conversations with real Guelph grads. As always, I'm your host, Ryan, and today on the podcast, I'm joined by Paige Rutledge. Paige graduated from the University of Guelph's music program in 2020 and has since gone from the classroom to traveling all across Canada as a full-time country music singer and songwriter. She released her debut EP, Breakup Rules, just last year, which can be heard across Canada on Sirius XM radio, FM stations all across Ontario. And if that wasn't cool enough, in between recording and touring, Paige still finds time to teach at the University of Guelph's Applied Music Program. Welcome to the podcast, Paige. How's your day
Oh my
so far?
gosh, thank you so much for having me. That was such a great intro.
Thank
I'm
you.
being, I was like, wow. Sometimes I listen back, I'm like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. That's so fun. Thank you for having me today.
No problem. So I do want to talk about all the cool stuff you're doing right now, but before we do, I do want to take things down to a bit of a serious note and ask you kind of a
Mm,
controversial kind of question,
okay.
just to get your take. Do you consider Cowboy Carter a country album?
Ooh, see, that's a very controversial question. I actually have not listened to that album start to finish.
Okay.
So I feel like I can't give like a good take on that. I do know that there was a very divided feeling at the Grammys when that
Hmm.
album definitely won. I don't have enough like Beyonce knowledge or have listened to enough Beyonce to give it like the whole whether it's country or not. I've been listening to country my entire life and my grandpa was the one that showed me like early country. So it's hard to kind of say. What I will say about country music though is I think the beautiful thing about country music is it is very open and there's not really like this set of rules of what country music is right
Hmm.
now. So I'll listen to the whole album start to finish one day. I
Okay.
haven't, to be super honest, which I feel like maybe gives a little bit of my answer a
I've listened to it.
little bit.
I would say there's some
Yeah.
songs that definitely lean far more country than some of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty close, I would say.
Pretty close.
I think
Yeah.
there's some like pop country that would be kind of more close to like rock and kind of questionable
Totally.
itself. So I think it's if you
That's
think
such a
it's country. If you don't think it's country, that's not country.
agreed. And I think, like I said, I think in country music, there's so many artists that are pushing boundaries right now of what country actually is. And you're
Hmm.
seeing so many artists like Post Malone or like Beyonce making country records. So until I listen, I have to listen to because I have listened to the Post Malone record start to finish,
Mm.
but I haven't done the Beyonce start to finish just because I didn't really listen to Beyonce
It's
before
fair, totally
she
fair.
did that because I don't know why. I like Beyonce at a club though. Like, don't get me wrong. If I'm out and like Beyonce tune comes on, I'm gonna dance with my friends.
Yeah, yeah. So back to why we're here. I would love to know, kind of what your journey was to the University of Guelph, and kind of you mentioned your
Mhm.
grandfather there, but
Yeah,
why you chose music, why you chose to study music as well. Like, was music part of your family? Was that something always part of your life? And big question too
totally.
is just, why
Yeah.
Guelph?
So it's funny because I actually, my cousin also does music as a career, but aside from that, like just growing up listening to music was kind of it. Like my parents don't play any instruments. They were like, there wasn't any of that sort of musical background in my family. My family's actually very involved in sports. So
Mm,
I just always loved to sing. Like that's kind of what it came down to. The first artist I remember learning any songs or singing along to is Shania Twain and was just loved music, like loved performing and putting on little concerts around the house. And one of my earliest Christmas gifts was a karaoke machine that I can remember getting and like standing in front of the TV and just singing. I just loved to sing, loved
mm,
to sing. My parents always listened to country. Like I said, my parents worked in sports. So when I was old enough to go to school or any sort of program during the day, we would go to my grandparents' house in the evening, my brother and my grandpa was retired at the time. So he would play country music. And he was just one of those people that was always very encouraging that if you wanted to do something, like you should always just go for it. Because he played hockey. So he was like, don't do something you don't
mm,
love. Like, kind of go for your dreams. He built me a stage at my cottage. So then I would force my cousins and friends to come, like, be in all these little shows that I was putting on. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny because still to this day, I don't know if there was like this defining moment that was like, I want to do music. I've always just remembered loving to sing and
mm,
loving to get to be in a position, I guess, where, like being on stage, I feel like is such a special feeling because it's a way of connecting with people
mm.
in like this. I don't even know how to like describe it, but it's such a unique way to meet and connect with people. And I don't know, that's what I've always really loved taking away from shows. Like when you leave the stage, you just like everyone had such a great time. And I'm like, wow, I got to be a part of that reason why people are enjoying their night. I
Hmm.
didn't like when I started playing and kind of going through, I guess, wanting to like actually do music. I started playing some bars when I was 13, and my dad would have to come with me because I obviously wasn't old enough to be in a bar.
Hmm. That's fair.
Yeah. I'd go and just kind of play a few open mics or find anywhere that would let me play any short set. And then when it came time to, you know, with high school, I was like, well, how the heck do you go to school to be a country singer? Like, I'm not really sure how to do this. And so I looked around and I always knew like it was always country music. I had started writing songs when I was 16 because I just knew that I wanted to be in this world. And I didn't know what I was going, honestly, like to be super honest, I had no idea what I was going to do after high school because I was like, the next thing you should do is go to school.
Hmm.
Like that's kind of what, everybody, like all of your friends are off doing whatever. And I remember feeling really anxious and really stressed graduating and not knowing what to do. And so I was researching a bunch of different music programs and a lot of them, are classically based or jazz or whatever. And I was like, well, that's not what I'm going to enjoy.
Hmm.
And so I ended up finding myself at Guelph. Because I also love, I mean, I love the campus. I fell in love with the campus immediately and had so many people in my life that had graduated from Guelph that spoke so highly about the school. And not a single person has ever said a bad thing about U of G. And I was like, well, why the
What?
heck not? Well, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. And so I was like, well, we might as well go for it and just kind of see what happens. And I was already reaching out to different bars and stuff like that downtown to just be like, am I going to be able to play gigs? Because that was also important to me. And Guelph has a really great arts scene. I will say, like, I've been fortunate enough to come back and speak at some conferences and stuff like that for
Hmm.
Guelph. They've always been very welcoming. And so I accepted my offer to Guelph and I was like, well, let's just see what the next couple years are going to hold. And I promised myself that no matter what I was doing, I was going to go into it and give 100%. And so I think because of that, I had a really great experience. I also was in a little bit of a transition year
Hmm.
with the program because they've done a lot of changes to the music program at Guelph now to kind of like really push this like contemporary working in the industry, like what does life look like as a musician after graduating? So I got to take some really cool courses that were a little bit of like guinea pig courses in that time that ended up really applying to the things that I needed after I graduated.
That's awesome. And you kind of touched on it there. Like overall, like was there anything that was surprising when you got into the program? Because you said you've been writing music for a long time, but then to do it academically, was there a bit of an adjustment there?
Yes. And I would be lying if I was like, da, 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 da. And I think that was nobody really kind of prepares you for that part when you're like, especially like I said, I was writing country songs and listening to Taylor Swift and just playing in bar gigs and stuff like that. So stepping into music in an academic world was very different. It
Hmm.
took a little bit of adjusting. That's for sure. I used to walk around the house that I was living in with my roommates and like practice the singing tests that I would have to do in like different languages. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm practicing. It's a little different than the Taylor Swift that we're normally practicing, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was great. And I think that also pushes you to think about music differently, right? Like everything, like I said, I kind of just always take every opportunity or every experience as whether it's good or bad as a learning one and just always trying. So there was definitely some moments that I was like, I have no idea what is going on right now. But at that time too, the program was really small. I mean, it still is. Actually, no, the program is growing insanely at Guelph, which is really, really beautiful to see. But at that time, it was a lot smaller. Um, and because of that, we all got to know each other really quickly in our classes. So watching other people kind of struggle through the academic part of it too was refreshing at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. I can imagine, but it's probably a good thing, like you said, it pushed you outside your comfort zone a bit, and
Totally.
probably, I would assume, improved your music writing
Yes,
ability, right? Uh,
absolutely.
and when it comes to writing music, what is kind of your approach? Is it kind of different each time, or do you come with the melody first, or lyric
Mhm.
second, or where does it come from?
I have always been it's funny because that's one of my favorite questions because I'm always like, maybe one day it will change for me. And it hasn't yet. I've always heard or lyrics first. And usually I have a title. Like that's kind of the first thing that pops into my head
Mm.
is if I'm like It's usually when I'm sleeping too, which is it's funny because I'll roll over in the morning and like I know that I write it down really quickly if I'm dreaming about it or whatever, which I know sounds crazy, but I promise it's not that crazy for anybody
No,
listening. I'm like,
I get that. Yeah.
yeah, it just like pops in and I like wake myself up and I'll roll over and write it down on my phone. So sometimes in the morning I have to like decipher the words that I was writing because it's not in full
Hmm.
English. There's a lot of spelling mistakes happening in there. But normally a title pops into my head first and I kind of brainstorm around that concept. And sometimes it's just from like conversations having with friends, or sometimes, you're listening to something else on the radio or whatever, and you hear like a certain lyric, and it's like, ooh, what if those couple words were actually just a song title
Hmm.
in itself? And so my phone is really just filled with song titles, and then I always try to like write a couple things underneath it of what I think this could like kind of go in, and then I pitch it to whoever I'm writing with that day. But I've always been lyrics first. I've
Hmm.
never, yeah. And then I feel like when I hear or when I see what I'm writing, like it kind of goes hand in hand with, I'm like, okay, this is probably the vibe of what the song is going to feel like. But yeah, I've always been a lyrics first girl.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of country music also is
Yeah,
very lyrics heavy. Like I feel like they don't
there's a
always necessarily.
massive emphasis on that.
Yeah, like
Totally.
especially some of the older songs, they didn't always rhyme, but there would like be this like musical flow to it. And like if you just read the
Yeah,
lyrics, you could probably just read it on its own and get the full story.
right. For sure. And that's the key word right there, I think, is story. Because when you think back to early country music, even still, like I think there's such an emphasis on storytelling in
Hmm.
country music. And that's why people love it so much, is because it's so lyrically driven.
Hmm. And do you find like you talked about some of your points of inspiration? Do you find it is a lot of your music is autobiographical, or is it just like a bit of both?
It's very autobiographical.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything I write has happened in my
Okay, all right.
life.
Good to
Yeah,
know.
I'm a very, it's funny because meeting certain people, most boys are like, can you not write a song about me? And I'm like, well,
I can't make that. That's up to
I
you.
don't know. Yeah, that's exactly it. I can't make any promises on that one.
And then so more to like kind of your time in school, like overall, would you say your experience was positive? Just not even just academically, but like the kind of the
Yeah,
community, and you said you loved the campus. Was there anything particular you're very fond of in terms of the
totally.
campus?
So I think it was like during orientation week. We did, I guess it was like a talent show kind of thing that they did up in Brass Taps, and I got up to sing during that. And I remember somebody after, like one of the leadership week staff came up to me and they're like, "You should go to the bull ring every single week. They do an open mic." And so I went to that open mic every single week. And so I met a ton of people, not even in the music program, but just across campus in different programs that loved music and loved to perform just by going to that open mic. And I
Hmm.
always say to like the new music students that come to Guelph, because some of them have reached out, and I always like tell them, go to that open mic, because just because you're in the music program doesn't mean that there's not people across campus that are also in bands or doing, whatever. And there really is this cool art scene on campus in itself. And like I said, I just kind of involved myself in everything. Like any opportunity I saw, I sang at a couple of the hockey games every so often. Um, it just tried to find any opportunity to be a part of campus. And after I graduated, I came back and I sang at when they did the renovations for
Hmm.
McKinnon and they did like the big unveiling or whatever. I got to sing at that. And so that was like, it's cool to be asked back to get to be a part of something on campus. And so my experience was great, but I also, like I said, try to get involved. And I know that can be a scary thing too. Like that's easier said than done, right? And
Hmm.
it's kind of scary to put yourself out there sometimes, but I was like, if I'm going to do this, we're just going to
Yeah,
find every opportunity to kind of do it. So
yeah.
my experience was fantastic at Guelph. I don't have genuinely anything bad to say about
Hmm.
school.
Yeah, boring is such a like.
I
Honestly,
love the bull ring. I
it
still,
feels
every
like
time I'm on campus, I go and get a sandwich because I'm like, heck yeah, I love the
it's
bull
because it's
ring.
such a unique building, and then also with all the couches, it just looks like I don't know if you were filming a university like show about students, that
Yeah.
would be where they would hang out. It would look just like that.
Totally, totally. And I think I remember walking in the very first time to the bull ring and being like, what is this place? Because it's such a unique vibe. And I just remember, you know what, that's actually probably one of my like fondest memories of my time at Guelph is going to the bull ring. And I feel like I say that every single time, but it really did because my roommates would come and just friends that I'd make it would just be something that we did every single week. And it kind of took away, from the school part for a second. too. And we were just hanging out at the bull ring. And then I would get to go up and sing a couple songs, which made my night so much better. But it was just it's a great place to hang out and just socialize.
And then so like after school, when you kind of transitioned to being like a professional singer, like full time,
Mhm.
what was that transition like, and kind of how did that come about?
My last year was so weird. I'm sure anybody who graduated in 2020
Yeah.
can imagine because I guess it was, and it's so funny. I remember I actually was singing for, I think it was like a music student preview day, or it was something along the lines of that. I can't remember exactly what the event was, but they had asked me to perform, like the school or the music program. And we were doing the event at Silence. And I remember singing, and it was a Friday, whatever the Friday is that the world kind of
Uh,
shut everything down that March. And I remember like everyone kind of like people were talking about COVID at that event, and we were all asking our instructors and the faculty members, we're like, so do you think we're gonna have class on Monday? And they all kind of gave us the like, we can't say because the email hasn't come out, but check your emails
uh,
later today. And I remember getting an email like shortly after leaving that event being like, oh my God. So that was obviously a little bit odd. There's sometimes, and I did graduate, I graduated, but there's moments sometimes where I'm like, did I finish school? Because it really was just such a weird period of time. And, especially at that beginning, because I was the first start of everything, nobody knew what to do. Instructors didn't know what to do. The school didn't know what to do. In fairness, nobody knew what to do. So I ended up moving up to my cottage
hmm.
and was just kind of like, because I didn't have a job. I didn't, I just graduated. Like normally, my goal was always to graduate, go out, play shows. And that was very difficult to do when you couldn't leave the house. So, um, my cousin and I, we have the cottage together and we built a recording studio in the basement and we just wrote songs and made music kind of throughout that entire almost a year. I'd say really we spent that
Wow.
entire, yeah, first year of COVID just making music and learning how to kind of like navigate, I guess, this new world. And I found myself spending a lot of time on social media and in the sense of like using that time to connect with people across Canada, honestly, it ended up being across the world. Like I found myself on a few live streams over like based in the UK and just connecting with different, because everyone was doing that. So I was like, why not lean into the live streams and, you know, writing with people virtually? Because that was kind of
Hmm.
how that started too, in a sense, like all the Zoom co-writes that I'm sure every musician
Yeah, I
has
think back.
talked about.
I remember seeing like a lot of like band reunions and jam sessions that people did over
Yeah,
Zoom, like
totally.
artists that you'd never see work together, but just
Yep.
during that time, then they worked with all this crazy combination of artists.
And it was funny because I did a couple of, like those kind of events where you'd like record your part and send it in and then they put it together to make it like this live Zoom session. And it was such a unique experience to get to be a part of that. So again, I just kind of really leaned into that and I was like, well, like because obviously this wasn't the case for everybody, but I was like, the position that I was in my life, I was like, I have the ability right now to just fully be engaged online, promoting music, writing songs, doing whatever. And then so when we were allowed to start playing shows again and allowed to kind of go out and do, you know, networking events or this and that, there was already this sense of community and relationships that I had built with people over the internet that were then translating to real life, which I look back on and it like for sure have helped to get to the stage that we're at now making music.
Yeah, I know social media gets a lot of negative attention for good reasons, but I think in some ways there is a lot of opportunity, especially for artists, to be able to get their name out there and,
Yeah, it's
connect with people
definitely
they maybe never would have connected with before.
for sure. It's that double-edged sword for sure, because it really is such a useful tool. And it can also, I think, be on like the other hand, some people's downfall sometimes because it's so easy to get wrapped up in the negativity on social media.
Uh-huh.
So I think finding the balance
Just don't
and
read the
knowing when,
comments. Don't read the
yeah,
comments. You're
and
good.
knowing when to put your phone down is very important.
And then kind of navigating a bit of like the music industry. Did you find that like the program prepared you for that?
Yes. So in like with those new courses towards the end of my time at Guelph, there was one course we took and they have fully developed this now. I can't remember like, I think they've changed the name. I can't remember exactly what it's called now. I think it's just called Industries or something like that. But um, I took it over reading week, actually. It was a 5-day course because we got a full credit for it, but it was just, again, like kind of a guinea pig course as they were pitching it to the university, and at that time it was called music in the professional industry or something along the lines of that. And we spent that entire course learning how to build a website, how to write for Factor and write for grants, which has been like a big part of working in music. We learned how to build a musician's resume. We had some guest speakers come in at that time too. And I remember the director of Hillside came and was one of our speakers or one of the guest speakers during that course. And I went up and introduced myself after and ended up booking the virtual Hillside inside of February, or I guess the following year because of that course. So looking back at that, it's funny too, because I think in the moment, like in that stage, I don't think it's sometimes you take a step back and realize what you're taking away from the course. And in the moment, I probably didn't realize what I was taking away. But in hindsight, as I've reflected back on that, I'm like, especially the grant writing, I'm like, holy cow, did I ever hate that? But that has
Uh-huh.
been when you're working in music and you realize that, oh, money is a very tough thing, then you're going to really learn or love that you've learned to write grants. So
Uh-huh.
those parts were very important. And I know they're placing a really big emphasis on those aspects of working in music after.
Uh-huh.
Because, the performance is obviously one thing and learning how to. The other thing, too, right? We did a lot of collaborative stuff, which, in my opinion, I think the entire industry is collaborative. Like, you can't do it on your own. So I think when I look at what I've taken away from the program, it's those things as opposed to like maybe actual skills. Of course, those are important, but the working part after are the moments that I've taken away from Guelph.
Nice. And do you find like touring across Canada, like do you ever like connect with people and be like, oh, you went to Guelph? Like, do you ever find like unique times where it
Yes,
comes up and you're really surprised?
there was, oh my gosh, can't remember where I was, but I was talking to someone, a guy that plays guitar, and he brought up Guelph, and I was like, "You went to Guelph?" And it was just like, there's always those funny little moments that have happened, and it's funny too. Where we've been playing the Stampede Ranch the last. I don't know how many years now. And that's always been really big, like going on in public. And they're like, oh my God, you played the Stampede Ranch. And I'm like, yeah, Guelph.
That bus was
So
famous.
that bus is
Uh,
famous. And I definitely was on that bus at 19 years old
Yeah,
going
yeah.
over to the Stampede Ranch.
Yeah, one of the nice things about Guelph, I find, and the University of Guelph, is that, like you said, like you rarely hear anyone say something negative about it,
Yeah,
and there's not any like
totally.
weird rivalries with other schools. Like it's not like, oh,
It's
like
true,
I
right?
don't want to name names, but there's certain schools if you say you went there, you're like,
People immediately have that reaction. But
oh,
Guelph has pretty like in the heart reaction. Like people are like, oh, Guelph. And you're like, yeah. It's
yeah,
just, you know what? And of course, like obviously university is not an easy experience. And there's hard moments and there's definitely the low moments. But looking at like the overall experience, yeah, I look back and I'm like, those years. And again, I don't think I recognized it in the moment because I was so just like, how do you go to school to do country music? But when I reflect back on that time, I'm like, I'm so glad that I made that decision to go to Guelph and build the connections that I've built and learned, those little skills that I might not have had. But also, I look at just the sense of community, which I think is a very important thing. And like still getting to go back and play at the ranch and be a part still of Guelph and be a part of that community has been such like a beautiful part of my life. Like I love going back and visiting campus.
and so I'm assuming that some of that positive feelings is partially why you decided to come back and kind of teach and help out with the applied
Yeah.
music program.
Yeah, that was funny how that happened. And I love it. And it's been so special to get to connect with the students in the program now, and they'll ask about my experience. And I'm like, man, if I could do the program now, I would totally, totally do it just to see the changes that they've made in the courses and the emphasis they put on, you know, like kind of those little things that I was talking about. There's a bigger emphasis on them now. But yeah, it happened again, just kind of during COVID. And I had a great, or still do, not even had, have a great relationship with the faculty at Guelph in the music program because again, like at that time it was a small program. So you really got to have a relationship with your professors and like have them in your corner, which I think also speaks to why maybe I speak so highly about my experience because I had an actual relationship with my professors. So it was fun going to class. It was cool to get to hear what they've done. So the school reached out to me and was like, we're kind of navigating COVID. Any chance you want to be a part of this? And I was like, yeah, why not? And so it's been cool to have that role. as well with the school and still get to be a part of
Is it weird being on the other side, like to think about how to explain these things, like and talk
it.
about them? Like maybe there's
A
certain things that
little
just are
bit.
just intuitive that you're like, oh right, how do I frame this? Like how do I
Yes,
explain this?
there's been a few of those moments, and there also was like a little bit of that transition period where it was students that I had classes with at the same time where I was kind of like,
Hey,
we were we were in the same class not too long ago. But it's what I love about it now too is there's so many talented musicians in the program at the moment, and not just at the moment, but in general. But seeing it from this side now and not being a student and getting to see them play and then running into them at events, I'm like, this is cool. Like, this is a nice kind of transition. And seeing how passionate they are about working. And then every time they ask me questions and they like value my opinion, I'm kind of like, oh, yeah, I guess I do actually do
me? Are you
this.
sure you're asking me?
I'm like, me?
But I'm just a
What do you
student.
mean? Exactly. Like those parts are the funny parts, but it's also really cool. Again, it's cool to be on that other side and see like maybe what people in this position were feeling like when we were students. And I'm like, oh, wait, this is kind of rewarding. It's a cool feeling.
And I know we talked about your EP. What do you have planned next? Like what are you currently working on right now?
New music, which is crazy. I'm like, whoa, it's always new music. We have at the beginning, I guess it's like middle of July now. So this whole year, it's funny too. When we started the year, I remember like talking to my bandmates and whoever, and we're like, oh, like the beginning of the year can be kind of quiet. Like, and that has been the complete opposite for us. Like, it's kind of been go, go, go for the past bit. So we are back playing again. We play this Friday and this Saturday, and now this is kind of just like full on dates until really October at this point. And actually, like currently, right before this call, we were working on live music or not live music, working on new music. So
Nice.
I just put out a song a couple weeks ago, I guess, almost on June 27th. So however long ago that was, the days are all blurred together. Um, called What You Gonna Do, which was technically the first single like since the EP, which was it's interesting. 'Cause I hadn't put out an EP before, that project. And so you put it out, you let it live, and every song had its kind of moment. And then so it was an interesting feeling putting out a new song because I was like, oh my gosh, that chapter is kind of closed now. But um we have this song. There's at least three more songs coming out this year, which is again like a crazy thought because it's all going to happen very
Yeah,
quick.
yeah.
And so, but it's also really exciting to like kind of go into that next chapter of new music.
Yeah. And do you find like when you're writing music, are you thinking about your old music and kind of like what your voice is and what like in voice in terms of like who you are and when the artist, kind of your sound?
Yeah. And I always want to, I don't ever think you should stop growing and pushing yourself. So, and obviously, like I wouldn't have put out the songs if I wasn't proud of them or thought they were good representation of me. And I'm like, how do I now grow as an artist to be better than what had already been released? And so it's like that constant kind of, which again, I like because you want to push yourself and surround yourself with people that are going to push you. But it also is releasing music can be very stressful, but it's also a very like rewarding feeling, especially when the song is just out there and you're like, oh, there's nothing I can do about this now. It's out into the world and then it's on to kind of the next thing. So
Yeah, it kind of evolve has almost its own life at
yeah,
that point,
totally
right?
evolves. It's also fun to brainstorm. Like I love going into rooms right now to write songs and kind of think like push myself a little bit to be like, okay, we kind of have something like that already. So like what's a different side of Paige that we can bring out as an artist? And I've been really trying to dig into my feelings recently, which can be a scary thing, but just trying to be like a little bit more, even more vulnerable writing, because I think people can feel vulnerability and people relate to that.
Hmm.
And as scary as it is to really like dig into yourself and pull out, whatever, I think those are the songs that resonate the most with people. So that's what I've been really pushing with these new songs is kind of digging in as much as we can to who
Yeah.
I am, that it translates to other people.
Well, because I think sometimes that vulnerability and comes with honesty, right? And then because
Yeah.
we can recognize honesty, then we can recognize maybe not the exact same situation, but connect with that feeling.
For sure.
Do you ever like put like I know work I write for my job and in general, and I find often sometimes being a creative person, like if it's too open, like if someone says just do whatever you want, you like lose your mind, but like putting restrictions is actually like
Yeah.
helpful. Like if I have a
Yes.
tight deadline or like I can
Totally.
only use like it's a very specific topic I have to write about. Do you find like sometimes you'll put restrictions on yourself? Like okay, I'm only going to use
Yes.
this, like it's just going to be acoustic set. This is all I'm going to do, something like that.
Totally. And I think at the end of the day, like I mean, there's certain songs like when we're writing, I'm like, okay, we want the song to go to radio. So there's that little bit of kind of like what is going to hit at radio. So like, I guess like that would be kind of those restrictions that we put on it where I'm like, can't get like too deep where it still has like, but
Yeah, yeah.
yes, yeah, there's definitely kind of playing with those boundaries and formulas, I guess I'd even say for like what kind of makes that country song pop kind of in there. But it's also just like fun to write and just I don't know if you did this. I tend to overthink every single word that I write down on that. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I look back and I have to go and like stop myself from overthinking every single word.
Yes. I also think
Yeah,
sometimes when it comes to writing, when you think about writer's block, it's often you're just being too critical of yourself in that
for
moment.
sure.
And yet it's
Yes.
an iterative process, so it's going to evolve anyways. And I find
Mhm.
sometimes if I get stuck, one of the best things I can do is just write purposely bad. Okay, like I
Yeah,
can't get the answer right. I don't know what to write. Okay, let's just what would be the worst idea? And then you kind
I
of
love
deconstruct
that.
that. And
And I
then
love that you said that because I think there's something to be said too. Like going into sessions, I used to put a lot of pressure on myself that every song had to be like my best idea or like, this or whatever. And I think sometimes you have to write things that aren't as great. So then you're building those muscles to to write something that ends up being that product that you want to put out to the world.
yeah, because sometimes those first great ideas, they never stay that way, right? They
I
always
know.
change, for whatever reason, good or
Yeah,
bad.
totally.
Well, I know you're a busy person, so I don't want to keep you too much longer. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you want to touch on, or maybe a last piece of advice you want to leave for,
Hmm.
potential
Yeah. I
music
guess
students?
if I could give any advice, I always kind of take a step back. I can get caught up in just being like, what's next, what's next, what's next. And I guess if I could give any piece of advice, if you're feeling, down or that you're not doing what you should be doing, is I always try to take a step back and be like, what would little Paige think of what she's doing now? And, I think a lot of it comes from you have to believe in yourself and not be afraid of the no's because there's a lot of no's in this industry. So embrace the no's is my piece of advice.
Amazing. And if people want to hear more from you, where can they, if they want to follow you on social or if they
Yeah.
want to hear more of your music, where can they find that?
Everything is at Paige Rutledge or Paige Rutledge on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, the radio, wherever, wherever you want to listen to your music.
Amazing. Well, okay, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to kind of chat with us today.
Thank you for having me.
If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Maybe drop us a review, hopefully 5 stars, and I'll put all the links in the show notes. It'll include the social links and also there's more information at yoguelph.ca. Our theme music is actually written by Paige herself, and we'll be back next week with another conversation with a new Guelph grad. Until next time, thank you so much for listening.